Hey y'all! Welcome to the fourth and final episode of Middleclass Artist. My name is Zach Finkelstein, and I'm the editor and writer of middleclassartist.com. Today we'll run the numbers on young artist apprenticeships in the US and pick apart a real live artist contract to show what you can expect in your first few years on the road. Before we dive in, let's break down the application process on a real young artist program. We can call it Big Time Opera. According to a few young singers, this program lies in the upper middle tier of American apprenticeships. To apply, a young singer must pay Big Time Opera $35 as an application fee. The fee is not a guarantee to be heard, it just ensures that someone at the company reviews your application. Applications require time and additional money for recordings. Big Time Opera required a pre-screening, a professional-level audio recording from the last 12 months featuring 2 opera arias. A decent recording in my hometown of Seattle, for example, costs about $200 for the studio, an engineer, and an accompanist. The final step, if you pass the pre-screen, is to audition live. If you have a friend in one of the 4 American cities listed on Big Time Opera's application, and they're willing to house you, great. If you don't though, you need to pay for a night in a hotel or Airbnb. If there are callbacks, it might even be a few nights. You also need to get yourself to the audition. For most, this means a flight in the $300 plus range, and since you'll be booking it last minute, you won't be able to shop around for a deal. And often, those auditions happen during peak pricing in November and December. All in all, let's say if you make it to the final cut for Big Time Opera, the process might cost you $500 in materials and travel. If you live in a prime audition city like New York, you can probably cut that cost down to about half that. Now let's meet Matt, our fateful young artist applicant. Hey Matt! In 2018, Matt passed the pre-screen and the audition and was offered a contract at Big Time Opera. They gave him a deadline of 4 days to think it over. The work for Big Time Opera required 3 concerts of arias and songs, covering a lead role in one opera, and singing chorus in another opera, as well as rehearsals and the occasional schmooze fest. That's a hefty load for 2 months' work. Matt was offered $125 a week for this job. If this were a full-time gig, that would come out to $6,500 a year. The original application did not list the pay. The contract offered housing and a $100 reimbursement for travel, as well as career development opportunities like coachings and masterclasses. Because the performances were all over the state map, and the company did not reimburse gas mileage, Matt lost money on travel. He spent $400 on gas driving to the festival, concerts, and rehearsals, a net loss of $300. What are the odds for someone like Matt to get into a mid-tier program like Big Time Opera? Well, nearly 1,000 singers applied to only 25 spots in this program. Let me repeat that. Almost 1,000 singers applied for 25 spots. That's about a 2.5% acceptance rate. For a frame of reference, the acceptance rate to an undergrad degree at Harvard is about 5%. So a competitive candidate for Harvard might be twice as likely to get in as a competitive candidate for this mid-tier program. Let's say you're a New York City-based artist and you apply to this program. Since you don't have to fly in, it costs about $235, including application, recording, and sound engineering, as well as an accompanist. If you're a competitive singer like Matt, we can estimate you've got about a 2.5% shot of getting in based on the raw numbers. So 2.5% of the time, you'll make $1,000, $125 a week for 8 weeks. We'll be generous and not include the loss for travel. Maybe you can ride for cheap with a fellow singer and pay them $100 for gas. 97.5% of the time, though, you won't get in, and you'll lose the cost to apply, $235 for your audio recording and application fee. That means on average for an application like this, you might expect to lose about $200 for every young artist program you apply to. To increase your chances, you'll want to apply to at least a few programs. Your competitors with cash to burn might apply to dozens of programs a year. On average, even spreading your costs of travel and recording across a few applications, you might expect to spend thousands of dollars a year. For example, in the first 2 years of my career, I was privileged enough to work a dual career and funnel that money towards singing. I applied to about a dozen young artist programs each year to fill up my summers, Including flights to New York, I spent somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a year applying to young artist programs. This math also only works if you have a chance to get in. If you incorrectly judge your odds, say apply to a top program without a competitive package, or say you're a soprano and you're competing with a lot more people for only a couple of spots, your odds might be a lot less than 25 out of 1,000. In fact, your odds might be 0. For example, back when I was a young artist in the late 2000s, I was accepted into an opera program that auditioned all voice types. The conductor, however, ended up bringing in nearly the entire cast from his grad school production. The only 2 cast members selected from the audition process were one other tenor and me. The company already cast every other voice type from the school production, giving sopranos, altos, and baritones a 0% chance of success. The current fee to apply to that young artist program is $65. What can we learn from this scary math? The bottom line is that the odds for young artist programs are challenging, and even if you beat them, you're still not going to make enough from these contracts to live on, especially if you live in a high-cost city like New York. As long as companies in the US look for young artist programs on your resume, you're going to want to give those opportunities a shot, maybe a few shots. If you get in, great! You have a chance to build relationships and skills that other singers won't, and you might increase your odds of working in a level 1 opera house. But if you hit a wall, or can't afford to apply to these programs, just remember that there are a lot of ways to succeed as a professional musician. And those other singers that zigged and zagged along the way are doing just fine. Singers like Arwen from the last episode, who turned a church gig into a dual career and is thriving in the early music scene. There are so many ways to approach this career. Young artist programs are an important way, but they aren't the way. If you can develop a second set of skills while you build your voice, if you pursue a dual career in the lean early years, when young artist opportunities don't provide enough to live on, you can have a career in singing on your own terms. And you'll be well on your way to the life of a middle-class artist.